Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Glidden here. June 19th, 2014. Waiting to kick off another worldwide health webinar. This time a reiteration of the original blood sugar, healthy blood sugar webinar that I did. Thanks for finding your way here, especially if you are a guest. We will get started here at approximately 3 or 4 minutes after the hour. We'll give it a little bit of room for latecomers to show up. I have a ton of information to get through tonight, so I don't want to start much later than 3 minutes after the hour. I appreciate your showing up. Let's see who's here and read down the list. Jen is a guest of Matthew's. Welcome. Gay, Andre, Amanda Ridout, Allison in South Korea, the 3Ds in Calgary. David, Debbie, and Don, I think. Cora in California, Bill in Denver, Ben, Bill in St. Louis, Carol in Indiana, Sherry, Coach Macon, Claire, Ashley, of course, and Duffy, Chris Taylor, Corey and Shayla in Calgary, Dan, Dave, Dax in Vegas, Emily, Debbie in Florida, Floy in Wisconsin, Donnie, Diana Jean, Kansas City, Diana in Arizona, Edwin, Dorinda, Dominican Republic, Doug is in the house, Elaine, Eleanor, Shoreline, Washington, welcome aboard, Icy, Earl in Baltimore, Hunter, Horst in Bangkok, we are truly international now, we're on the other side of planet Earth, Gay, Heidi, Gordon, Jean, guest of Matt Tokoffs, Jen, guest of Matt, Myron and Pamela, Juliana, Judy Leahy, Joe Colon in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, back from vacation, Johnny Walker Red, Joanne, Pam, Jim in Northwest Indiana, Mike, Sue, and Bill Pasquale in hot Chicago, Nancy Garn in Florida, Myron and Pamela, Nancy, Nadine, my little attendee box is going crazy. Michael NG from San Jose, Mark Megumi, Linda Johansson, Mike Timotic in Chicago, Pete in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Hey, Pete. Peggy Brady, Steve, Sean Buchanan, Sandy, and too many more to mention. You're logging in too quickly for me to keep up. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. This is my health webinar, Thursday evening health webinar for insiders and their guests exclusively. We're going to get started here in approximately 3 minutes with a reiteration of my world-famous Healthy Blood Sugar webinar that we are rolling out once again in order to try to stay abreast of current trends. For those guests who are perhaps new to this format, new to me, I'm a licensed naturopathic physician. We just crested 100 people in the chat room. I'm a licensed naturopathic physician. I have 25 years of clinical experience in the delivery of science-based alternatives to drugs and surgery. And it's what the world needs to know and doesn't. And we're going to talk about this tonight. Now, my profession is a licensed and regulated medical profession. In order to become a naturopathic physician, you need to have 4 years of pre-med, 4 years of naturopathic medical school. You have to matriculate and graduate from a fully accredited naturopathic medical school, of which there are currently 5 in North America. You then need to pass state exams, state board exams, national board exams, and pursue continuing education credit every year. It is, in fact, a full-blown primary care medical degree. The smallest system of medicine in the world right now that's regulated and licensed, also the most rapidly growing. When I was a freshman at John Bastyr College of Naturopathic Medicine, before it became Bastyr University of Naturopathic Medicine, there were 33 students in my freshman class. Currently, I believe the average class size at the naturopathic medical schools around North America are 125. So the profession has grown seriously. Pour some sugar on me. Tokoff is in the house. And our good friend Mike Phillip holding down the fort in Camrose at a coffee house, or I think they grew out of the coffee house. He's somewhere in Camrose hosting a large event for a number of people. I think there might be 50+ people in the room in any event. Shout out to Camrose. Appreciate you guys. Hope we can learn something tonight. Members of your community desperately need you. And listen, there's a breaking point that happens in the delivery of new information when 16%, I believe is the number, of the population understands a new idea, then it trickles through the rest of the population in lightning speed. I am predicting that Camrose is going to break all of the records in Canada because it's going to be relatively easy for us to hit the 16% mark in Camrose, due in large part to Mike Phillip and Garrett and everybody else who's up there being active. It's by simply telling the truth and pointing. I think we're going to do great things in the province of Alberta with you guys at the forefront of the health renaissance, for lack of a better word. Let's kick it off and get started. 112 people in the house. It is 8:04 p.m. Central Time, Thursday evening, June 19th, 2014. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. Let's kick off the webinar and see if we can't learn a thing or two. Okay, very good. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. Maybe the other way. Okay, great. Very, very good. So let's hit the ground running, so to speak. I appreciate the attendance. I appreciate the support. I remember back in the day when we were giving webinars, and we had, 10 people in the room. It does my heart good to see 114 people now in the room. I appreciate the hard work that everybody has done. Remember, we are a grassroots coalition of the informed who are going out of our comfort zones every day in speaking the truth about what's really happening with medicine here, not only in North America, but all around the world, and educating people about science-based, clinically verified alternatives to the standard stuff that the pharmaceutical industry is throwing at us day and night. This webinar is the science behind healthy blood sugar. Let's get started. So, I like to do these webinars in steps. It's important that we have an understanding from start to finish of what's going on here, right? We need perspective, especially when it comes to things involving medicine, because most of us just trust that the people in power know what's best for us, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be in power, and it's an inaccurate belief. We need perspective, especially on stuff that we have very little experience with or very little understanding of. Perspective makes all of the difference in the world. And certainly this is the case when it comes to the delivery of medicine and even just the understanding of medicine and how it's delivered here throughout the world in the 21st century. Perhaps a good place to start is to understand that medicine is a vast territory, it's a vast domain, and nobody owns exclusive rights to the domain of medical science. MDs do not, in point of fact, own medical science, like myself, like the chiropractors, like the homeopaths, like the Ayurvedic practitioners, like the traditional Chinese medical practitioners, like the acupuncturists and herbalists. MDs are only trained in one piece of the pie of medical science. One piece of the pie of medical science. The pie of medical science has many more pieces than the four that are identified here. the MD piece, the osteopathic piece, chiropractic piece, traditional Chinese medicine, naturopathic piece. There are many more pieces to the science, to the pie of medical science. It's important in the context of this webinar tonight that you understand that your MD may be the nicest human being God ever created, but they do not know what's best for you. They only know what they've been trained in, and what they've been trained in is one small piece of the pie of medical science. In point of fact, their piece of the pie is referred to as allopathic medicine. I practice naturopathic medicine. There's chiropractic medicine, osteopathic, homeopathic, etc. Well, it may interest you to understand that your MD is trained in allopathic medicine. And allopathic medicine is a very interesting system of medicine. It's based on a philosophy of the human body referred to as reductionism. And basically, in the world of medicine, there are two camps. Like in the United States, we have basically two political parties, right? The Republicans and the Democrats, conservatives and liberals, whatever. Well, in the larger field of medicine as a whole, you can break it down into two separate and distinct parts, the reductionistic side and the holistic side. Every medical profession in the world, besides the MDs, espouse and are trained in a holistic understanding, a holistic methodology. The MDs are the only medical profession, the only branch of medicine that are trained and still hold on to tooth and nail to reductionism, which quite frankly is old-fashioned, outdated, archaic, and dangerous. Reductionism is best suited for surgery and trauma and a handful of infectious diseases. This is the wheelhouse of the MD. And in a perfect world, it would be all that they would be allowed to practice, because MD-directed reductionistic medical philosophy argues that the human body is a machine made of parts, and that it's the doctor's job to do diagnostic discovery to figure out which part of your body is broken, and then to deliver a drug not to fix the problem but to manage it, because according to reductionism, the soul does not exist, the spiritual energy does not exist inside the human body. The human body has no inherent intelligence. Consciousness is a function of biochemistry. Everything stops when you die. Your body is basically an evolutionary accident, a bag of biochemicals waiting to break. The body cannot fix itself, and it's the doctor's job not to attempt to cure your illness, but to simply manage your symptoms with drugs. Now, this is a very important thing to understand, especially when we're talking about blood sugar issues, which we're going to be discussing tonight. You need to understand that your MD, again, may be the nicest person God ever created, but they have been trained to believe that your body does not have the ability to fix itself, and it is their job to manage your symptoms. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have every other type of medical discipline in the world. Now, I'm going to talk about what I know, which is my profession, naturopathic medicine. And as I explained before we began, in order to become a naturopathic physician, you have to do 4 years pre-med, 4 years naturopathic medical school. There are currently 5 naturopathic medical schools which are fully accredited in North America. Then you have to pass national boards and state boards and pursue continuing education credit every year. It's a full-blown primary care medical degree. And being holistic in its philosophical underpinnings, naturopathic medicine argues that the body is a complex system of interrelated parts, that everything affects everything. There is, in fact, a soul. There is, in fact, intelligence residing inside the human body, separate and distinct from your brain. Your body is so smart it grew itself all by itself from a single-celled organism into you. Holistic physicians argue, well, son of a gun, if the body is that intelligent, it's probably also intelligent enough to know how to optimize its structure and function and to fix itself. This is the fundamental difference between the holistic understanding and the reductionistic understanding of health and disease. So, simply stated, it is the holistic physician's job, my profession's job, to deliver to your body therapeutics, the intention of which are to support and promote your body's ability to fix itself. Honestly, I have the easiest job in the world, because the fundamental supposition here is your body knows how to fix itself. Your body wants to fix itself. Your body is attempting to fix itself all of the time. Holistic physicians are trained how to do that. And in the case of naturopathic medicine, we marry the scientific method with the holistic philosophy. So we use science to prove that our therapeutics are effective. If anybody tells you naturopathic medicine is unscientific or unproven, they're quite frankly lying. Now, again, MDs are trained to march in and take over the body, manage your symptoms with drugs until things get so bad that you need a surgical intervention because the body can't fix itself. And holistic physicians are trained that, son of a gun, the body knows how to fix itself. You need to understand this before we go on any further. This is the fundamental difference. Now, MD allopathic reductionism, just to reiterate, interestingly enough, MDs are not trained in the majority of times for chronic diseases to be concerned with what causes the disease. MDs will tell you it's genetic, but they won't tell you what gene it is. MDs will tell you that it's an autoimmune disease, but they are unable to iterate how that happened. MDs, by and large, are not trained to be concerned with what causes the disease, because as far as they're concerned, it doesn't matter because the body can't fix itself anyway, so what difference does it make what caused it? We just simply have to step in and manage the symptoms with drugs. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with drugs. I can prescribe drugs. Don't have any problem with drugs at all. Thank God for Novocaine. Thank God for morphine. Thank God for penicillin. It's not the drug, it's how it's used, right? It's not the gun, it's how it's used. Well, we have some startling statistics to show you about what happens when you let a reductionistically trained medical professional use a drug. But in point of fact, it is an important thing to understand that your medical doctor, your MD, by virtue of their training, do not practice healthcare. They practice disease management. And there is a gigantic difference between healthcare and disease management. Don't believe me? Well, you're welcome to your own opinion, but you're not welcome to your own set of facts. In the final analysis, medicine, all of the different types of medicine are like dogs. There's a lot of different types of dogs, and they're good for different things. Bloodhounds, right? They're great for finding lost people in the wilderness. Labrador retrievers, they're great for duck hunting. They're great for pheasant hunting, right? There's Chihuahuas. I have no idea what they're good for. But you would not take a Chihuahua duck hunting and expect to come home with a duck. It's the wrong dog for the hunt. Well, when it comes to medicine, it's similar. We need to use the right type of medicine for the right condition. We need the right dog for the hunt. The problem is that all around the world, in the European Union, in Canada, in the United States, quite frankly everywhere, the medical market has been monopolized by the MDs and the pharmaceutical companies for almost 100 years. Most of what people know regarding medicine is relative to MDs. And people have come to believe the false notion, the cultural myth, that the MD is the only true doctor and everybody else is a back-of-the-bus quack with substandard training. It's just not true. Now, as I said before, the wheelhouse of the MD is surgery when it's necessary, trauma care, putting bullets out of somebody's arm, stitching up bleeding arteries, and a handful of infectious diseases. That's the wheelhouse of the MD. But because the MDs have monopolized medicine for nearly 100 years, they treat everything. And again, when you treat a complicated, sophisticated, holistic system with reductionistic methodology, nothing good happens. And let's take a look at what type of results we've derived all around the world from 88 years of MD-directed monopolization of the medical market. It's not pretty. This is a little clue as to what's happened. Again, you're welcome to your own opinion, but not your own set of facts. While we've let the MDs be in charge of medicine, obesity has skyrocketed. In the US, it's gone up by 60% in the last 20 years. It's tripled in our childhood population, and currently 1/3 of Americans are obese. And obese means you're really overweight, not just a little overweight. It's an epidemic. While we have given our health to the MDs, because they are clueless as to what causes obesity. By the way, they're clueless also as to what causes blood sugar problem, which we'll get into shortly. While we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine, autism, which used to be 1 out of 10,000, is now 1 of 68. 1 out of every 68 children now is born autistic. I'm 56 years old. I didn't know any autistic kids when I was growing up. Now it's 1 out of 68. Thank you, bus driver MD. Alzheimer's has skyrocketed. It has risen from obscurity to become the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. Here's your brain. There's your brain on Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's has created a swath of suffering, disease, and torment much greater than any tornado. And yet we turn a blind eye towards it, even though it's happened directly on the watch, during the watch of the MDs. After nearly $600 billion of cancer research, cancer remains uncured. You know how much $600 billion is? A lot. And this is what we get for it. And you know, people get so grief-stricken about what happens to their relatives that they're only too happy to do a 5K run for cancer and then give the money that they raise to the pharmaceutical industry and to the medical profession who don't even know how to cure heartburn. Giving MDs and the pharmaceutical industry more money for cancer research is a fool's errand. But because they're in the majority, because they monopolize the medical theater, because they're the kings of medicine, they can do whatever they want. And this is a problem. Bankruptcy in the United States, the leading cause? Medical bills. Can you believe that? The leading cause of bankruptcy, medical bills. You know why this is? You know why? Because the most expensive type of medicine is the one that doesn't work. MD-directed medical therapeutics for chronic disease don't work. And it's not any different in Canada. Canadian healthcare spending unsustainable in Alberta, arguably my favorite Canadian province. You spend $47 million a day. And what have you gotten for it? What have you gotten for it? Look around the room, Cam Rose. How many people are healthy? How many people can sleep at night? How many people don't have heart disease? How many people don't have bad joints? How many people are at a good and normal body weight? How many people have enough energy to make it through the day? How many people have memories that are intact after they're 35 years of age? If you're not ticked off, you're simply not paying attention. It's bad. But don't worry, it gets worse. In the United States, the 3rd leading cause of death is cancer. The 2nd leading cause of death is heart disease. The leading cause of death in the United States? MD-directed medical treatments to the tune of 780,000 people a year. And I'm the quack. This is an unacceptable state of the union. And yet, nobody is talking about this except Dr. Wallach and myself. The medical system in North America, the medical system all around the world does not need to be upregulated. It does not need to be downregulated. It does not need to be tweaked, managed, nor massaged. It needs to be abandoned because for chronic disease, it does not work. You wouldn't go to a chiropractor for advice about open heart surgery, would you? Nor should you go to an MD for advice about what to do for a chronic disease, including blood sugar. Voltaire said it best. Doctors, parentheses, MDs, are men who prescribe medicines of which they know little to cure diseases of which they know less in human beings of whom they know nothing. And my second cousin, 7 times removed, Benjamin Franklin, God heals and the doctor takes the fee. Now remember, it's the holistic physician's job to support and promote your body's ability to fix itself and actually to try to understand the pathogenesis of the disease process, to try to get a clue on what's going on here. And that's what we're going to talk about now. The blood sugar and the metabolism thereof in the human body. From the proper perspective, which in this case is brought to you by Youngevity. Now, Youngevity is an international nutritional supplement company founded by my mentor, colleague, and friend, Dr. Joel Wallach, who we'll speak about later in this presentation. I've been a licensed naturopathic physician for 22 years. I have 25 years of clinical experience. And as God is my witness, the therapeutics delivered by Youngevity, Youngevity's nutritional supplements, propped up by their founder, Dr. Joel Wallach's understanding of the pathology of human disease and what to do about it. The therapeutics brought to the table by Youngevity, the products brought to the table by Youngevity, eclipse in effectiveness anything that I have previously seen. And I've seen quite a bit in 25 years of clinical experience. This is why I'm an advocate of Youngevity. This is why I'll stand on the town square. I'll stand on a soapbox. Give me a microphone. Give me a bullhorn. Just give me a chair to stand on, and I'll get up and start talking about it, because we are suffering needlessly here. Enough is enough. We need to do something about it. And what Youngevity has done about it is bring to the table boilerplate, foundation, medical nutrition, health recovery strategies formulated by the world's leading expert on holistic medical nutrition, Dr. Joel Wallach. And that's what we're going to be talking about from now on. The holistic understanding of blood sugar and the metabolism thereof. And I'm going to juxtapose it and compare it to how the MDs tell you things are, just by way of comparison. So let's hit the ground running. The problem is not sugar. You may have been told that the problem is sugar, but this is in fact only part of the truth. Sugar is the gasoline of your body. You couldn't blink an eyelash without sugar. If you don't have enough sugar in your body, same thing happens to your body that happens to an automobile. You run out of gas, you're in trouble. Well, if you don't have enough sugar in your body, you can't do anything. You have no energy. Your heart starts getting funky. Your organs start to shut down. Sugar is an extremely important nutrient for the human body. As a matter of fact, you may find it interesting to understand that your DNA, right? Remember that from high school? DNA is an acronym, shorthand for deoxyribonucleic acid. The stuff that your genes are made out of, DNA, the stuff that your chromosomes are made out of, is sugar. Sugar is so important to your body that your genes are made from it. I bet you didn't know that, and I hope your head just exploded. Sugar is not the problem. The problem is how much of it is going down the hatch every day. And you would not believe how much sugar we consume all around the world. I mean, it's gone up and up and up and up and up. In 1822, this is a hard graph to see, and I apologize, but in 1822, the average American consumed 450 grams of sugar every 5 days. 450 grams of sugar every 5 days. That's equivalent to 1 soda pop. Now in 2012, we now consume 7,650 grams of sugar every 5 days, which is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19 cans of soda. Our sugar consumption is off the charts. And I did a webinar last week that explains why. Because the soil doesn't have the nutrients in it that the plants need to be healthy, the food that we're growing tastes like crap. And so the food industry puts sugar in the food in order to make it taste better, so we'll buy it and not start growing food in our own backyards as a resort. One of the main reasons why there's so much sugar in the food now is because the soil is completely depleted of the nutrients that the plant needs to be healthy. And when a plant is unhealthy, it tastes like crap. So to get you to eat it, the food industry, guess what? Puts more sugar in your food. But most importantly, and again, nobody but Dr. Wallach and I are talking about this, in addition to how much sugar we're eating, consuming, drinking, going down the hatch every day, another big problem is your body's ability to handle the sugar load. Now, your body needs raw materials to do everything. There are 90 essential nutrients that your body needs to function the way that nature intended it to. 90. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 2 essential fatty acids. But these nutrients are not in your food. So it's only a matter of time until your body loses nutrients, and then things start to break. And if it loses the nutrients that it needs to metabolize sugar, and you're eating all of this sugar every day, you are a train wreck waiting to happen. Now let's break it down. Every cell of the human body, and it doesn't care if it's it doesn't matter if it's a red blood cell, if it's a sperm cell, if it's a bone cell, if it's an eye cell, if it's a brain cell, if it's a skin cell, if it's a tooth cell, if it's a liver, pancreas, gallbladder cell, it doesn't matter. Every cell of the body, of which there are trillions, needs sugar, needs gasoline, needs sugar. Every single solitary cell of the body. Now, a good way to visualize this and to understand it is to think of a cell like a sphere, right? Like, you know, the Death Star in Star Wars, or like the moon up in the sky, right? Or a rubber ball. Now, if we cut that in half, and my slide doesn't propagate. Well, the cell, every cell of the body has a wall around it. And the wall is there to keep things out and to let certain things in. And the wall of every cell in the body is similar to a castle or a house. There's only so many ways you can get into the castle. There's only so many ways you can get into your house. Most people go through the door. You could go through the window, right? And if you were really in a fix, you could drive your automobile right through the side of the house and break through the wall, right? I mean, you could. But most people go through the front door. Well, the architecture of the cells in your body are similar. There are doorways in the wall of the cell that things use to get into the cell, and sugar is no exception. So again, here is an artist's rendition of a cell, and you see the inside of the cell and the cell wall, and then the outside of the cell, and little doorways in the cell wall. Now, it's through these doorways that things enter and leave the cell, and this is an important thing to understand. You know, if you put a sponge in water, the entire sponge will suck up all of the water. Well, that's not the way that a cell is. Things can only become absorbed by the cell if they pass through the particular openings in the cell, and different openings will only allow certain things in. It's fascinating, the architecture of a cell. It's fascinating. So here's what happens when you eat something that has sugar in it. The food goes into your stomach digests it, the digested food goes into your intestinal tract absorbs it. Now, whatever you ate is in the bloodstream. And the body loves sugar. Body needs sugar. Body can make its own sugar if you don't have enough in the diet. The liver actually makes sugar through a process called gluconeogenesis. So if there's not enough sugar in the diet, the liver will make extra sugar because, remember, every cell of your body needs gasoline, needs sugar. So now there's sugar in the blood. When there's sugar in the blood, there's an organ behind the stomach called the pancreas. And the pancreas secretes a chemical called insulin. Insulin is an extremely important, it's a hormone. It's an extremely important nutrient hormone in the body. Extremely important. Because it is insulin which allows sugar to enter the doorway of the cell. So here's how it works. So in this slide, the sugar molecule is blue, and it's a little hexagram. And the insulin molecule is the little purple triangle. And there in the red, you see the inside of the cell, and then you have the cell wall. And then you have a little green receptor site, and a little yellow and a little red doorway on the cell. Well, here's what happens. There's sugar in the blood, so the pancreas makes insulin. Insulin floats through the blood and lands on a receptor site on any cell in the body. Once insulin lands on that receptor site, it sends a chemical message through the interior of the cell to open a sugar door. It's kind of like if somebody showed up at your house and rang the front doorbell, and when they did that, the kitchen door would automatically open, right? And in come the groceries. Well, this is how nature intends to get sugar inside the cell. Insulin binds to the receptor site on the cell wall, sends a chemical message through the inside of the cell, and voila, the sugar door opens. However, this doesn't happen through pixie dust. In order for the message to open the kitchen door, to propagate through the inside of the cell, there are a number of nutrients that must be present. If those nutrients are not present, insulin will bind to the receptor site. It will try to send a message through the cell, but the message gets interrupted. It's like somebody snips the wire on the doorbell, and you're ringing the doorbell, and you're ringing the doorbell, and you're ringing the doorbell, but the kitchen door stays closed. This is the root cause of type 2 diabetes. Now, type 1 diabetes is called insulin-dependent diabetes. And in type 1 diabetes, the pancreas is so burned out that it cannot make insulin. So there's no insulin there. And if you put that on top of not enough nutrients to help propagate a weak signal through the cell, you're going to be in a world of hurt. This is why type 1 diabetics need to inject insulin. We're going to talk about that a little later. Now, when the body runs out of the nutrients necessary to make the signal go through the middle of the cell and open up the sugar door, any number of illnesses can show up. Syndrome X, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance syndrome, pre-type 2 diabetes, or quite frankly, full-blown type 2 diabetes. From the holistic vantage point, from our point of view, these illnesses are different iterations of the same thing. It's just more and more and more and more and more and more and more nutrient deficiencies. Less and 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 less essential nutrients available in the body at any moment in time. And from our point of view, the ability of your physician to dial in a definitive diagnosis here is irrelevant. Because whether it's syndrome X or pre-type 2 diabetes or full-blown type 2 diabetes, it doesn't matter. Because it all goes back to the same thing. What? Your body has run out of the nutrients it needs to properly metabolize sugar. It's that simple. Now, remember, we don't have a free medical market. And the people that are in charge of medicine don't give a hoot about medical nutrition because they have no training, no experience, no respect, and quite frankly, no appreciation for applied, science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. Your medical doctor does not know what I just told you, which is a crying shame. So, because they're in the majority, and because they're clueless as to the genesis of this disease, while we have given our lives to them, while we have let them hold the reins of our health care, diabetes is rising. It's rising rapidly. In 2012, 9.3% of the population in the United States had diabetes. The percentage of Americans aged 65 and older remains high at 25.9%, or 11.8 million seniors have type 2 diabetes. The incidence of diabetes in 2012 was 1.7 million new diagnoses a year, which means about every year there's 2 million new cases of diabetes. 2 million new cases. And pre-diabetes went up 79 million. This is an epidemic of biblical proportions. And the only reason it's happening is because we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine. In the same way that a chiropractor is the wrong physician for open heart surgery, an MD, by virtue of their allopathic, reductionistic, pharmaceutical centrist training, are absolutely positively the wrong people to bring your body to if you're suffering with a blood sugar issue. Blood sugar issue is the 7th leading cause of death in the United States. 70,000 people gone, with another 200,000 people gone who had diabetes, which was a secondary cause of their death. Apparently we're okay with this as a culture. Apparently we're okay with this, nationally and internationally. You know, I mean, we would not accept this in any other profession, right? I mean, if high school teachers killed 69,000 people a year, we would not be okay with that. If postal workers killed 70,000 people a year, we would not be okay with that. If taxi cab drivers or airline pilots killed 79,000 people a year, we would not be okay with that. But when the MDs do it, we give them a pass. Because we are all suffering from the myth that the MD knows what's best for us and that the MD is bringing the best that medical science has to offer, and it's simply not true. We've all drunk the Kool-Aid. We're all genuflecting at the altar of the pharmaceutical industry and the allopathic, reductionistically trained MDs. And in our eyes, they can do no wrong. So even when they harm us, even when they bankrupt us, even when they kill us, we continue to go back to them for help because we don't know there's anything else to do. Well, that's why I'm here, to give you a clue. I appreciate your time. You know, I mean, right, the statistics are going up and up. I mean, look at the difference between 2010 and 2012. There were 25.8 million people in the United States diagnosed with diabetes and 291 million 2 years later. Or 29.1 million 2 years later. So it went up almost 5 million cases, 5 million cases, which is interesting because in 1957, this guy, Walter Mertz, figured out one of the mechanisms behind type 2 diabetes. He was able to completely eliminate it in controlled studies with mice by removing or giving to them the trace mineral chromium. As it turns out, chromium supplement, the mineral chromium, is one of the nutrients necessary for that message to populate through the cell wall and open the door. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, 90% of all soils in the United States are deficient in chromium. Gee, I wonder why we have a diabetes epidemic. Must be genetic. Vanadium is also another mineral that there's been tons of research on that shows a direct relationship between vanadium deficiencies and the prevalence of type 2 diabetes. It's not genetic. But remember, medicine as it's delivered here in the 21st century is a for-profit thing. And you know, I don't have anything against making money. But when you do it on the backs of the suffering, I do have a problem with that, and you should too. In the United States, one type 2 diabetic patient treated for 5 years will profit the medical industry approximately 47 grand. And if you play that out over 40 years, which is about how long people survive once they have that diagnosis, it's about $376,000 from one patient. The reason that the pharmaceutical industry is not interested in curing chronic disease is because they make tons of money managing it. And if you don't think that's the way that it is, you have your head in the sand. I mean, this isn't new information. This was published in 1947. An eminent soil doctor warns that unless we attack the problem of minerally depleted land on a national scale, we face a slow extinction, and that is exactly what's happening to us. And it's not just type 2 diabetes. Arthritis is a mineral deficiency disease. High blood pressure is a mineral deficiency disease. You can trace every chronic disease back to a mineral deficiency, every single solitary one of them. And your MD does not care. We've taken the wrong dog to the hunt, which is why I recommend people fire their medical doctors. In all seriousness, you know, not because we have an axe to grind like, you know, the Democrats hate the Republicans in the United States, right? And, you know, the conservatives hate the liberals in the UK. It's not like that. It's not because of an axe to grind. It's because their therapeutics don't work. They don't work. And you need to know that. Bringing your body to the office of an allopathically trained MD, if you have a chronic disease, is a fool's errand, especially if it's a blood sugar issue. Because this is what they do. Number one, they'll wait until it's bad enough to warrant treating it. Oh, well, you have pre-type 2 diabetes. We don't know. We just have to wait until you get real type 2 diabetes, and then we'll give you metformin. Just tough it out until it gets really bad. Come back and see me in 6 months. We'll do more blood work, and when it's really bad, then we can march in with metformin. Metformin, also called glucophage, sells 48 million prescriptions a year. This is the main therapeutic intervention that the MDs use for type 2 diabetes. It's the main therapeutic intervention. And interestingly enough, it doesn't do anything to help that message propagate through the cell wall. All it does is reduce the amount of sugar that's in the blood. It suppresses sugar production by the liver. Remember I said earlier that your liver can make sugar? Well, not when there's metformin in your bloodstream. Metformin also suppresses absorption of sugar in the small intestine, so you can eat as much sugar as you want. Now you can't absorb it, so there's less sugar in the bloodstream. Interestingly enough, the main therapeutic intervention that the MDs bring to bear in the treatment of blood sugar anomalies that are not type 1 diabetes, for everything else they use metformin, even though the mechanism of action is unknown. They do not know how it works. They know a couple of things that it does, but they have no idea how it does them. And yet they have no problem giving it to you. Now, there was a diabetes prevention program. This was done in the 80s, I believe. Participants were divided into groups and given either placebo, metformin, or they had, lifestyle intervention coaching, right? For 3 years. The incidence of diabetes was 58% lower in the lifestyle group and 31% lower in those given metformin. So, changing your diet and exercising a little bit, or changing your lifestyle, is more effective than metformin. After 10 years, that's just after 3 years, after 10 years in the lifestyle group, the blood sugar incidence was better and 34% lower in the lifestyle group and only 18% lower in metformin. So if MDs are supposed to be so scientifically oriented, and let's prove this and double blind that, and you need to bring to bear scientific research on everything, then why don't they prescribe diet and lifestyle change instead of metformin? Because it's more effective. They don't. I mean, which kind of seals the argument that your medical doctor is just a salesman or a drug salesman. If they were really physicians, they would pay attention to the research and they would advise their patients to get on board with therapeutic interventions which were the most effective. Now, the jewel in the crown of MD reductionistic treatment for type 2 diabetes is insulin. Remember, the problem here isn't a lack of insulin. In a type 1 diabetic it is. Type 1 diabetics need insulin or they will die. But not type 2 diabetics. The problem isn't insulin. The problem is the insulin lands on the cell and rings the doorbell, but the door stays closed. It's not for lack of insulin that that's happening, but the MDs don't give a crap. They give insulin, which completely misses the point. I mean, it's like painting over the mold in the basement rather than figuring out what's causing the mold in the first place and fixing it. By the way, when you are prescribed insulin, you're not prescribed human insulin. You're prescribed an analog to human insulin. So they take insulin because bioidentical human insulin is a difficult thing to make in a lab. They can do it, but it's expensive. So rather than give you what your body is making, they give you a man-made insulin which looks a little bit like what your body is making, but then they tack a couple of extra molecules onto it. So even when you're given insulin, it's not bioidentical human insulin, it's an analog to insulin, and these are the most famous: Lantus, Humalog, Novo Rapid, Levemir, Epidra. These are all synthetic insulins. which is good for the pharmaceutical industry. That's a little molecule, a little electron microscopic picture. And an electron microscope, right, focuses with electrons instead of light, so you can get an extremely small image. You can see stuff that's really eeny weeny teeny. Well, this is an electron microscope picture of insulin that's been colored. There are actually 6 different insulin molecules there. And you see the little purple stuff that binds them together? You know what that is? Zinc. The mineral zinc. So if you're zinc deficient, how well do you think your body is going to be able to move insulin through the bloodstream? You think it's going to be able to do that well if you don't have enough zinc, the stuff in the middle that holds it all together? No. But again, it doesn't matter to the reductionistically trained MD, and the drug companies love it, because synthetic insulin tops $18 billion a year in sales. Now look, for type 1 diabetics, you need insulin or you're going to die. But the problem, again, is not the insulin, right? It's the signaling inside the cell. So when you just load the blood with insulin, we don't think that's a good idea. And we believe that too much insulin in the body has net negative effects over time. I don't have any clinical proof to back that up. I don't have any double-blinded study to back that up. But it just makes sense to me that if you're loading the blood with insulin, when lack of insulin is not the problem, in a type 2 diabetic, something's going to break. And again, this is why you see people with blood sugar issues getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse every 5 years, even though they're taking the meds that they should be taking, because the medications are not fixing the root cause of the problem. They're not fixing the root cause of the problem. Now, inquiring minds want to know, well, Dr. Glidden, what do we do to fix the root cause of the problem? I thought you'd never ask. Longevity to the rescue. I mentioned before that Longevity was founded by Dr. Joel Wallach, my colleague, mentor, and friend. Dr. Wallach is now the second oldest naturopathic physician in the world at 75 years of age. He's a powerhouse. From 1970 to 1982, Dr. Wallach was in charge of $25 million of federally funded research. This book, which was the result of that research, is in the Smithsonian Institution in the United States. It's a national treasure. And this book was an exhaustive research study on nutrition in the animal kingdom. Ever heard of a cow getting type 2 diabetes? Ever heard of that? Ever heard of a chicken getting arthritis or congestive heart failure or high blood pressure? Ever heard of that? Do you imagine how much bacon and eggs would cost if pigs and chickens got the same chronic disease as humans did? Well, Wallach's research eliminated hundreds of chronic diseases in the animal kingdom. Hundreds of chronic diseases in the animal kingdom. Over 700. And then Wallach took that research and started applying it with humans as a naturopathic physician, and guess what? Got exactly the same results. Your body needs 90 essential nutrients. You can't get all 90 essential nutrients from food. If this represents your body's nutritional tank, it needs to be topped off every day with the 90 essential nutrients. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 2 essential fatty acids. But because these nutrients are not in the food, if you're eating what you consider is a balanced diet, you're lucky if you have 30–40% of your nutrient needs at any one time. Then you experience the stress of life. The stress of life burns through your nutrient reserves. Now you're running on nutrient fumes and things start to break. So you don't have enough vanadium, you don't have enough chromium, you don't have enough of the other trace minerals, you don't have enough essential fatty acids, and insulin binds to the cell wall because there's sugar in the blood. It sends a message through the cell wall to open the sugar door, but the message don't go. Not because you have a bad gene, but because you're out of gas. Well, not gas, you're out of nutrients, specifically minerals. It's that simple. Our fundamental message here across the board that is really a mind twister for most people. Surgery is complicated. Healing is easy. Because remember, your body wants to fix itself. Your body is trying to fix itself. If you cut your hand, do you have to tell your immune system how to fix that? No, it does it automatically. If you eat an apple, do you have to tell your body how to digest it, absorb it, and eliminate it? No, it happens automatically. Well, guess what? Your body will metabolize blood sugar optimally, automatically, once you give it the raw materials it needs in order to do that. And because we have Dr. Wallach's research to lean on, we figured it out. In order to support and promote your body's ability to optimize its blood sugar metabolism, the recommendation is a healthy blood sugar pack, and we've got two ones to choose from. We have the original, and we have a new one called 2.0. This isn't complicated. You know, you give the tomato plant Miracle-Gro, there's more tomatoes. You give the body the nutrients that it needs, all of a sudden things start working the way that nature and God intended them to. Your body can't make these nutrients. That's why they're called essential. An essential nutrient cannot be made by the body. It needs to be imported. And most people wrongly assume they can get everything that they need from food. Well, guess what? You can't. So our health recovery strategies are twofold. Number one, fill your body's nutrient tank up with the appropriate healthy pack. In this case, it would be the healthy blood sugar pack. Number two, eliminate these 10 bad foods: wheat, barley, rye, and oats, fried food, oil in a bottle, well done red meat, meat with nitrates in it, the skins of baked potatoes, yams, and sweet potatoes, carbonated drink with a meal. And if you're dealing with a blood sugar issue, until you are on the other side of the blood sugar issue, avoid fruit juice, fruit leather, honey, maple syrup, agave, molasses, anything that turns into sugar or that in fact is a big sugar donor itself. You have to give your body a break in extracurricular sugar consumption while you are attempting to support and promote its ability to have healthy blood sugars. I mean, if you break your leg and it's in a cast, you're walking on crutches because you have to ease up on it. Well, when you're attempting to support and promote your body's healthy blood sugar, you have to ease up on it. Eliminate the 10 bad foods, eliminate extracurricular sugar consumption. And this is our strategy. This is the secret sauce for healthy blood sugar. Remember, we don't treat disease here. I treat disease in the context of a private practice when I am living and residing in a state which licenses and regulates naturopathic medicine. But in the context of longevity, in the context of these webinars, we don't treat disease. We support and promote your body's ability to optimize its structure and function. So we don't treat metabolic syndrome, syndrome X, pre-type 2 diabetes, full-blown diabetes. We support and promote your body's ability to optimize its sugar metabolism, and we do that with one healthy blood sugar pack or healthy blood sugar pack 2.0 per 100 pounds of body weight per month. One bottle of Ultimate Selenium per 50 pounds of body weight per month, not to exceed 4 bottles a month. One extra bottle of EFA at the 180 count per month. Eliminate the 10 bad foods, eliminate any extracurricular sugar intake. And if you still want to have a little something sweet as a treat, you can do it with xylitol, stevia, or sucralose, or any non-glycemic index sweetener that you want. Because healing is easy, for goodness sake. You know, this is our message, this is our method. Now, if you are type 2 diabetic, or if you're type 1 diabetic, if you're type 1 diabetic, of course, you continue to need to take your insulin, but I have patients who are type 1 diabetic who have been able to cut their insulin dose by 60, 70, 80% when they're doing medical nutrition. So measure your blood sugars the way that your MD or healthcare practitioner has trained you to. Maintain your current medications. Get on board with a health recovery protocol to support and promote healthy blood sugars. And as your blood sugars start to normalize, you go back to your healthcare practitioner and they reduce your meds. The goal here is to get you so healthy that you can completely stop taking all prescription medications. Not because prescription medications are evil or bad or wrong, but because they don't fix the flippin' problem. You can keep painting over the mold in your basement if you want, but it's only a matter of time until the whole wall of your house falls off. Better to fix it. And with blood sugar issues, it's a very easy thing to objectively track. Because you got the little blood sugar monitor, or every 6 weeks, every 3 months, you go in for another hemoglobin A1C test. Your body's ability to fix itself is greater than anybody has led you to believe. Eliminate the 10 bad foods. Eliminate extracurricular sugars. Get on board with the appropriate nutrients for your body weight. And give your body a chance to show you what it can do. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time, which we are all out of right now. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. You're a steadfast advocate for health. If you like this webinar, to check out my website. There's lots more information. I have a radio program from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Thursday. Mike Phillip up in Camrose fills in for me every Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. Live long and prosper. Now get out there, spread our message, and help people to recover their health. Dr. Peter Glidden, over and out.